right, that's better. How you guys doing? How was your weekend? Good? Cool. All right, let's do a couple of things here. Hey, look, I can see me this time. That's so much better. All right. Well, we're going to do some interesting, fun things today. We're going to talk about positive psychology. We're going to actually do a little bit. I'll go through the assignments and stuff like that. We're going to talk about flow and wellness. Towards the end, I'm going to do a little thing about being isolated, feeling isolated, all of us being at home instead of on campus at Full Sail. I'm going to kind of talk about just like ways to think about how we deal with feeling like things are out of control. Some things are kind of beyond our ability to like fix, right? With having a distance learning type online for Full Sail right now, because you guys are campus students. And so this is kind of a new thing for you guys to be doing your campus classes online. So we'll talk about that. Got a couple of videos to show you. Before we get started, how are you all doing with progress since it is, first day of week 2? How are you feeling after the end of week 1? Write down for me in the chat box. How are things going for you? What's up? It's pretty good. Feeling good. Nice. Pumped. Easy. Good. Feel improved. Nice. Confident. Ready to kick it. Good. All right. So just, for the sake of saying it, first week, sometimes things get a little bit bumpy, and our job is to make sure we help you smooth out some of those bumps. Once we get your feedback for week 1 assignments, I believe you will know a little bit more about what you don't know if you had some problems. And so that's what we will be doing here in the next couple of days. Your call to play should have been graded already, and we've already started some of the discussion board grades. So over the next day or two, go look over your feedback. We want you to make sure you look at your feedback, and we tell you exactly what needs to be done if you did not get 100% on your discussion. But there's a couple of things I think that are really important to know. One, you want to look at our announcements. I think announcements are going to be the most important thing for you to be in like the workflow of. In each of your classes, we send out announcements to you. And so make sure that you know where those live. Sometimes it doesn't push you an announcement unless you've got it configured to. So if you don't get announcements automatically, that's a problem because you should be getting them. So go look at your announcements each week, and we will have some things in there to help you know what's going on. And so then your feedback is really important, because we're going to tell you exactly what you did right or did wrong. And yeah, make sure you read that feedback from us so that you'll know what changes to make next week. And we'll go through the quests today before we're done, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what you can expect. Some of it's going to look very familiar because it's going to look similar to last week, but there are different, activities that are in those quests, but it's the same format. So there you go. So let me get this up to the correct slide. All right, I'm going to turn my video off because it uses bandwidth. So I'm going to turn off my face. Hopefully you can still hear me. And so today we're going to do positive psychology, flow and perma and wellness, and then isolation, feelings, and loneliness. The the stuff about isolation and loneliness, those are newer. We don't do those every month because we're not isolated every month. But this is just kind of for you guys. So, ready to move forward? Yes, let's go. Let's move forward. All right. So I gave you guys kind of my background. What I do want to emphasize here is I want you to feel like you are able to talk to us. We want to be approachable. Jennifer and I are both nice people, and we want to help you succeed. It is our desire to help you take this course, learn from it, add it to your awesomeness, and move on. And so that's all you need to know for my intro for the week. And I like Star Wars. So today what we're going to do is we're going to challenge the field of psychology's dominant disease model theory. We're going to put a positive spin on positive psychology and learn what it's about. We're going to explore happiness, gratitude, and the PERMA model. So, see, some of you guys like Star Wars too. If you had the opportunity to see the most recent Clone Wars ending, I highly recommend it. It was awesome. I'm not normally a outside of the Skywalker path fan, but man, I think Ahsoka is probably the best character that I've seen Star Wars try to develop, and I enjoyed that. Anyway, so, you know, me being a licensed therapist, when I teach this history of psychology thing, I try not to get too out in the weeds about it. But basically, I see you guys are all writing in the chat box about Star Wars, and it's distracting me. Please keep going. Really like the sequel. Could have gone a lot better. So when psychology started, way back in the day, the whole idea was that, you know, they wanted to do good stuff with it. And it started off as like a high hope sort of thing. They wanted to help people get from, you know, good to better. And along the way, they noticed people coming back from war were coming back with trauma. And back in those days, they called it shell shock. And as a result of that, they realized that they could really funnel things like, you know, that trauma into a medical model. And so psychology turned into basically a medical model instead of a how do you get healthy model. So the VA was really involved in how they did work with that, you know, trauma coming back from war. And as time went on, psychology really lost its focus on being about health and wellness, and it became focused on disease. And they started to, you know, treat mental health as a disease model instead of as a wellness model. And so as a result of that, they came up with, like, you know, big strides in how they understood things. There were 14 different disorders that became more manageable, and new treatments were identified and developed. And so there's this book that I was trained in. It's called the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. And I was trained on the 4th revision. And so this book is like every understood way that mental health disorders are diagnosed. And so it's like a set of symptoms. Psychodynamic therapy, one of these methods. So psychodynamic therapy is a method, and so that's a treatment. And what I'm talking about is the diagnosis. And so in how we do all of these things, we have, what does the problem look like? And so positive psychology, or psychology way back in the beginning, did not look at problems. They looked at improvement. And so they didn't look at everything based on a problem. They looked at everything based on, what do you want the outcome to be? What do you want, health to look like? What do you want happiness to look like? What do you want your strengths to look like? And it was a study of developing those positive things. Regular psychology became about problems. And so those problems became clustered around a set of symptoms. And so those symptoms became the definition of a diagnosis. And so let's take like borderline personality, for example. Borderline personality is, so there's like 5 different levels of what a good diagnosis comes from. And so axis 1 is stuff that you can treat. Axis 2 is personality type stuff. And so borderline personality is in the second part. And so it's like frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. And so that's what the problem is. You're frantically trying to avoid feeling like you're being abandoned. And so you like attack your buddies, and then you change it to, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. But it's frantic. And so they look at these symptoms, and so they try to pattern that thing around a set of symptoms. You might be familiar with like mood disorders. Mood disorders are in the first level. Those are things you can treat. And so mood disorders, typically you would get some form of medicine for. And that's the medical part. And then the therapy part is, cognitive behavioral therapy, addressing your thoughts. And so the therapy part in that is, what are the, false thoughts that you have? What are the faulty things that you think related to, situations that make you feel depressed? And so all of these things are clustered around the symptom of like depressed mood. And so they start to look at what they're treating as being based on a problem. And so that problem gets this name, and that name is the diagnosis. And so there were 14 different disorders that became, more manageable because they had an identity. That the identity of the disorder came first, and then the treatment became more manageable because they knew what they were treating. They were treating a group of symptoms around a common theme. And so if it was like, psychosis, they had to identify, what does psychosis mean? Like, what are the symptoms of psychosis? And then is it, schizophrenia? Is it something else? And so looking at everything based on problems is what psychology became about. And so they were able to identify new treatments and develop those. But as a result of that, psychology became a field of victimology. If you, became diagnosed, you were really kind of seen as a victim of that diagnosis. And practitioners went about treating the mental illness or patients within a disease framework by repairing damaged habits, drives, childhoods, brains. And the most important part is there's no prevention for mental illness. So I want to say some stuff about this. I have to kind of do this a bit in my therapy. Most of us who are licensed therapists, since we're trained this way, we want to help people improve what the problems are. And so a conventional therapy thing is somebody coming in saying, hey, some things aren't going right now. I want to find out how to get better. All right, well, what are those things that are going wrong? And so by having a talk, a clinical interview, I help them identify what the problems are. And so then I look for, where do these problems live in the manual that I'm trained in? And so typically a lot of this stuff is not super like long-term. In my therapy, a lot of what I do is shorter term help. And so I don't have to diagnose something high end. I generally have some sort of thing that I can treat within 6 months. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, this is not the main focus of this course. And so psychology has this kind of stigma about, being weird, and, there's kind of a perception, you don't want to be diagnosed. And so the good news is we're not doing that. We're looking at something totally different. We're looking at positive psychology. And so we're going to talk about what positive psychology is not, and then I'm going to talk about what it is. It's not the study of pathology. It's not the study of weakness and damage. It's the study of strength and virtue. It's what makes you strong. What are your strengths? What are your superpowers? Hold on just one second. So it's not just fixing what's broken, it's nurturing what is best. In that earlier example that I was talking about with veterans coming home with trauma and shell shock and PTSD, that's a very serious thing. And sometimes those people feel like things aren't working right. Positive psychology is not fixing things that are broken. It's looking at everybody as having the ability to go from where they are to a better place. And it doesn't require a diagnosis to be able to have that. No diagnosis required. Psychology is not just a branch of medicine concerned with illness or health. It's much larger. It's about work, education, insight, love, growth, and play. And so psychology is not like little pockets of things. It's everything. And so one of the things you're going to notice in this course is it's everywhere. This course, I like to say, is about you. It's not about play. It's not about work. It's not about, little areas of things getting fixed. Trevor, yes, so this is more what motivational speakers use. This is specifically what motivational speakers use, and some of them even know it. Some of them do not. But motivational speakers are using principles of positive psychology, and some of them know it and they connect some of the terms that we highlight in this class. Some of them do not. But what's going to happen is when you leave this class, you're going to see every motivational speaker's thing, and you're going to be able to see right through it that there's a common thread. The reason why what they're saying is true when it is because it's going to point to something you're going to learn about in this class. Cool? So it's the difference between being proactive and reactive. You can't find happiness by assigning power to things outside of your control. So if you're going to find happiness, chances are it's not because something good happened necessarily. It's you were doing a whole bunch of things for good things to happen because you have the power to go make those things happen. And so what I just said should really sound like motivational speaking. So if we were doing a positive psychology clinical interview, instead of looking for what's the mood disorder here or what's the personality disorder here, it would be more like, what do you have going on right now? And so the person would tell me what's going on. And so I would ask them basically, what do you do for fun? And they would go, what? What do you do for fun? And so when I ask that question, the person's face just first is generally like, huh? And then it's like, I can talk about that? Yes, you can talk about that, because those are good things. And so when I find what people do for fun, I generally find what is motivating for them and what they do to go refresh themselves for overcoming a problem. And so generally, after I ask them what they do for fun, I ask them, you know, what are you good at, you know? And so if I know what somebody's good at and what somebody does for fun, I've got several different things that I can use to tap into positive psychology stuff, because it's about wellness. It's about getting better, and it's about strengths. And so what I'll ask them basically is, what are your strengths? What do you think your personal strengths are? What do you think your character strengths are? What do you think your skill strengths are? And the conversation becomes about those things instead of what are your problems? And so it becomes a way more positive way of looking at what we're doing. And they don't feel, one, it's not like, this isn't the main idea, but one of the happy outcomes is they don't feel like I'm there diagnosing them, because I'm not. Cool. So what we end up with is a couple of guys who are our theoreticians, and we're going to introduce these guys to you, and then we're going to take a couple of steps forward based off of what these guys have brought to positive psychology. Jacob, I'm really good at wheezing and sobbing at random sad and cute things. That is a character strength for sure. So the first one is Martin Seligman. So Martin Seligman, he was the president of the American Psychological Association years back. And he is kind of the front and center guy for the theories behind positive psychology. And so if you decide to research positive psychology first, you know, more after the class is over, you will find Martin Seligman as kind of the front and center guy. And so he's given several presentations. There's TED Talk stuff. There's probably some stuff in your reading from that TED Talk. And he's basically giving you the case for positive psychology being a foundational thing. The idea that, you know, people are not all broken. Everybody has personal strengths. Everybody has the ability to get from where they are to where they want to go, to a higher level of performance or excellence or whatever it is. And so positive psychology doesn't just have to be about what's your diagnosis and how do we treat it. We're not looking to treat you. We're looking to inspire you to connect to your strengths and then go use those strengths to go out and conquer the world in the direction you want to go in. And so Martin Seligman, he has our model for wellness. So we'll look at that in a little bit. Glad we're doing good. I'm glad you could say amen to it, Jacob. The second guy is, this is my favorite name. It's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So Dr. C is the other, he's the other, you know, main theoretician. So Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he's our guy that talks about flow. And so we've got a pretty long video that I'm going to show you guys on flow. I'm going to go through some of our like main highlights we're going to hit about flow. And then once we do that, I'm going to click over to this video. It's about 8 minutes long, but it's really good. It took me a while to be able to say this guy's name right, and mostly because one of my friends taught me the right way to say it. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So we're going to look at flow. I don't know if he's Polish. I forget which country he's from. So the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Yes, Eastern Europe. Yeah, that's where he's from. I don't remember which particular country it is. He might be Polish. So that was Dr. C who said that. And so we're going to get into this identifying and developing the idea of flow. It's a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will continue to do it, even at great cost, for the sheer sake of doing it. That's the main idea for flow. It's a state of consciousness when people find genuine satisfaction. Have you ever felt a sense of timelessness or complete absorption in a task? This is especially true when it involves your creative abilities. Feeling strength or effortless control? Congratulations, you found your flow. So I used to play the drums, and I loved playing the drums. I think probably the thing I enjoyed about it the most is that I could play drums for so long. I could play for hours and it would not feel like time had passed. And I would just, I would wake up in the morning and first thing I would do is tune my drum set. And then I would go to school and I would play drums at school because I had 2 different band classes. And then I would play drums after school because I was in the drum line. And then I would come home and I would play my drum set. And so I spent so much time playing the drums that I got pretty good at it. And so the better I got at it, the more I realized when I sat down and played, I was entering this state of consciousness that like you could get in the groove. Well, that getting in the groove thing is what flow is. And as you do that, time slips away. You see everything becomes more focused. And so you can feel what you want to play, and then your body actually plays it because you've practiced it enough that you are no longer trying to figure out how to make those sounds. You just sit down and do it because you've done it so much that practice pays off by excellence, and you are in effortless control of what it is you've practiced. And it's cool. And you get lost, right? I see some of you guys are writing in the chat box your stories about flow. And so you're doing things, talking about skating, drawing, reading, yep. Binging Netflix, yes. Totally counts. Totally being in the zone. You'll like totally miss a meal and like it doesn't matter until you stop playing, and then yeah, I'm hungry, I should go get dinner, but I'll keep on working on this song. Oh heck, it's midnight. Yep, there you go. Good job, Jacob. That's totally the way that it is. So the other thing is I do photography, and when I was trying to learn how to do photography, I didn't know how to manipulate all of the rules of how to take a picture. Like it's called exposure. I did not know how to make images. And so I had to practice with different settings to see what the images looked like so that I could learn. And so now when I pick up a camera, I'm able to shoot on a fully manual mode. And when I shoot in manual mode, I set my settings and based off of looking at the scene, not looking at my camera meter. And so I also like to do concert photography. And so one of the things I've learned in concert photography is it's really dark in there. And my cameras didn't have illuminated buttons. And so I would have to know where those buttons lived on my camera and manipulate those by, awareness of where those buttons should be. And so my fingers would fall right where those buttons were. And if I'm looking to change something on my camera, I knew where it was without having to see it. And so that's part of flow too. So here are the 9 elements of flow. There are clear goals every step of the way. There's immediate feedback to your actions. There's a balance between challenges and skills. Action and awareness are merged. Distractions are excluded from awareness. There's no worry of failure. Self-consciousness disappears. Sense of time becomes distorted, and the activity becomes its own reward. I have a favorite example of flow, and it's, I'm sure most of you probably drive a car. Yes, my throat, okay. Yeah, kind of. So when you're driving your car, you can turn on the radio, right? When you listen to a song, you ever have that time where you're driving your car and the song comes on and you totally zone out, and you can like not think about, hey, there's cars coming at me on the other side of, the lanes. There's a ditch on the right. You don't think about all of the stuff that it takes to drive your car. It's like automatic that you're able to drive your car because you've integrated all of those parts about driving your car into one activity. So when your music comes on, you can totally zone out to your music, and you can be driving down the road and go through like 3 green lights and stop at a red light successfully, and your song ends, and there you are sitting at a red light, and you totally didn't even have anything to do with the process of driving your car for the last like 5 minutes, right? So that is what flow is. When it says you like totally lose track of time, it's actually the same thing as self-hypnosis, because you are so focused on what you're doing that you don't have to monitor the things that don't require you to monitor. And so because you've practiced so much on driving your car, it's no longer about how do I drive my car. It's I'm going into this song because the song is the most important thing, and I like where the song takes me. And there are no boundaries in that song. And so I'm going where it goes. And so that's what flow is about. It's being able to go where the activity takes you without fearing going outside of where the rules are. And so flow takes you where the activity takes you. And when you've gotten so good at taking care of all of the like requirements, like there's a requirement in how to drive your car. It's pretty dangerous to drive a car, but you can totally not even pay attention to it if you have mastered that activity of driving the car. And so now flow is where the song takes you because there's flow in that activity. And so there you go. So there's 3 conditions that foster flow. You got to have goals, you got to have balance, and you got to have feedback. If you don't have these 3 things, typically you don't reach flow. If it's not challenging enough, because there's no goals, you won't get into flow. If there's not a very good balance between, am I good enough at this? And, can I master it? If you're not good enough at something, you can't reach flow. Like I couldn't reach flow if I had not practiced some particular pattern on my drum set. I had to practice that pattern and get good at the balance in order to be able to reach flow. And then feedback, you have to have clear, immediate feedback so you can make changes to improve. So it sounds like from what you guys are saying, this is kind of a redundant question here. Have you experienced flow? Because you guys have been writing about it in the chat box quite a bit, which is cool. It's like practicing to have a lucid dream. Yeah. The best state of mind, in my opinion, such a powerful, present, infinite moment. Cool. So I want us to do this little video here. Hopefully it will, hopefully it'll play for you guys. See if I can load it.
Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
The concept of flow has existed for thousands of years under other names, notably in Eastern religions, and was popularized in the Western world by
Mihály Csikszentmihalyi,
a Hungarian-American psychologist in 1975, who I'll refer to as Mr. CS. Mr. CS outlines his theory that people are happiest when they're in a state of flow, identical to the feeling of being in the zone or in the groove, where a person is fully immersed in what they are doing, a state in which people are so engaged in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. Some say it is a mental state in which a person is performing an activity with supreme awareness and hyper-focus, the pinnacle of achievement for an athlete. Psychologists have found that one's mind can attend to only a certain amount of information at a time. According to Mr. CS's 2004 TED Talk, that number is about 110 bits of information per second. Just decoding speech takes about 60 bits of information per second. However, when one is in a flow state, they allocate all their attention and all available bits to the task at hand. This is why people who explain their flow experience as losing awareness of all other things, like time, distractions, negative thoughts, and even basic bodily needs. Since the introduction of flow state by Mr. CS in 1975, there have been more and more legitimate research and studies showing the remarkable benefits of entering flow state that has on our ability to learn, create, perform, and more. But for the relevance of this channel and for gaming, I've compiled what I think are the 5 essential elements to entering flow state. In 1987, Mr. CS and Associates created this 8-channel model of flow shown here, which is now called the Experience Fluctuation Model. On the bottom of the flow model from left to right is low, medium, high skill level, and on the left side, from bottom to top, is low, medium, high challenge level. When an activity requires low skill level and is of no challenge, an individual will be in a state of apathy and have no interest in the task. When the individual is highly skilled, but the challenge is low, they will be in a relaxed state. However, if the challenge is high and the individual's skill level is low, they will be in a state of anxiety. The ideal state to reach flow is when the challenge and skill level required is about evenly balanced. That is when the mind is stimulated by the challenge and requires utilizing higher skill levels. The research states that in order for flow to occur, it's imperative that an athlete believes that he or she has the skills to successfully meet the physical, technical, and mental challenges faced. Confidence is key. Otherwise, you will be in a state of anxiety and fear. Athletes must be resilient when it comes to frustration, stress, and adversity. The more you practice, and the more time you put into preparation, the more it'll boost your confidence. Athletes and performers state that when they're in the zone, time seems to slow down or they completely lose perception of time because they are so entranced in the moment. There are no distractions that interfere with flow, like crowd noise, the opponent, or any thought that may sap into concentrating on the task at hand. Nothing else matters. All 110 bits of information each second is entirely focused into the activity. During the research phase for this video, I reached flow state, and I think two of the major factors being that I didn't have any real-life chores or responsibilities to interfere with my schedule, and the second thing being that I followed through with my ideal wake-up routine, and that's gym, meditation, sunlight, shower, and eating a healthy meal. With this routine, I take care of my physical health, relieving any nagging soreness and tightness that can be distracting. I reached a level of inner peace by reducing my anxiety with meditation, energized myself with vitamin D from the sun, feeling fresh after a shower, and then fueling myself with a nutritious smoothie. I have a video on why I think it's important to implement routines because I think they're recipes for consistency and they can help lay the groundwork to create an easier pathway to flow state. If you have a clearly set goal, you have a clear vision on what to focus your energy on and what you want to achieve, which provides structure and helps facilitate your concentration and attention. If you can't see the finish line, the path will be cloudy and inefficient. In gaming, this goal could instantly arise at any second. A round that turns into a 1v1, or the goal to win a best-of-3 match. In any case, you have to establish what exactly you want to accomplish. Then your mind knows how to focus your energy. During my competition years, I would often be the last person alive because I was responsible for carrying the C4 on T side, which left me in many clutch situations. I remember every time I was in a 1v1, I was never afraid because the game had simplified to me against only one other person. The goal was easier to achieve this way, and the adrenaline rush of the challenge often led me to flow state. Flow state is achieved when the mind and body are perfectly synchronized. Athletes in performance say during flow state, there is no conscious effort of forcing their mind and body to perform. They are not actively trying to control, but quite the opposite, getting out of their own way and trusting and letting it happen naturally. It feels effortless. When we game, we should try to open our awareness to all the information that is being given to us and trust our hand-eye coordination to perform our thoughts. Flow can never be reached if you are overthinking decisions or thinking about how to use your equipment. Flow is when there is a harmonious, fluid blend of movement and consciousness. During flow state, performers say their ego is completely lost. There are no thoughts of what people are thinking of them, what will happen if they lose, the reward for winning, worrying about making mistakes, no negative thoughts or external influences that interfere with their activity. An athlete in the zone is not only able to suppress and ignore negative thoughts and self-doubt, but they are also found to have higher self-esteem and confidence. This is a crucial part of performing at an elite level. Mr. CS hypothesized that people with several very specific personality traits may be better able to achieve flow more than the average person. These personality traits include curiosity, persistence, low self-centeredness, and a high rate of performing activities for intrinsic reasons only. People with these traits are said to have an autotelic personality. Mr. CS describes these people as having a sense of purpose and internally driven. This is different from being externally driven, in which case things such as money, power, or fame are the motivating force. In my opinion, in order to perform your best, you should try to funnel all your energy and thoughts into the task at hand. Any thoughts about external factors will only get in the way of accessing your flow state. Stay positive, be confident, create a routine, trust yourself, and get out of your own way. Be like water and flow.
All right. Pretty cool video. I like it. I think he does a really good job talking about the stuff that goes into flow. So, all right, education, I guess it was. Let's talk about wellness for a minute. What is this wellness thing or well-being this is one of the things that you guys are able to talk about this week in your discussion board. What does wellness or well-being mean to you guys? Being healthy, yeah. To be well, feel good, be good, do good, nice. Anytime I'm not feeling stressed or anxious, sure. That I can rely on myself to be okay, ooh, yeah. Feel good, peace of mind, yeah. Yeah, those are good answers. Wellness is everything you guys just said. Optimum bodily performance, yeah. It's anything that you do to be okay, right? I mean, anything that you cultivate in your life to have a better life. So it can be anything from, what you eat, what you do for exercise, what you do for education, what you do to push yourself, working out, that's great, yep. I do a lot of walking, I do that for wellness. I do a lot of reading. And so, it's interesting. I'll tell you, I'm looking back over my career at Full Sail because I'm getting ready to have my 9-year anniversary for Full Sail. And it's really neat for me for wellness, all of the stuff that I do in thank you, Trevor, my career is seamless in my life, We talk about wellness is a big deal. It's a good thing. It's important for me to live a life of being okay. And so it's not a conflict of interest for me to have a good relationship with my kids, When I was growing up, my dad had to travel all over the country, and that was not good for his wellness because he didn't have that time to be at home. I invest in my relationship with my wife and my kids, and that is actually a benefit to my job. I get to support my bosses, and that is something that I do out of my strengths instead of trying to look good. It's not me trying to get, brown nosing. I enjoy being helpful. I enjoy being helpful because by teaching about living a satisfied life, I get to actually practice that. And it's cool. I believe in servant leadership in what I do in therapy. And Full Sail has all kinds of things that they support with servant leadership ideas from the top down. And so Full Sail values servant leadership, and that's what I do with my clients. And so everything that I do, I get to practice what the course is about, and that's cool. So I'm looking back on all of the things that I do, and it's neat that I get to have so much wellness incorporated in my life because it's consistent with what Full Sail teaches, and it's consistent with what we teach in our class. So there you go. So what we're going to look at is the PERMA model. And so we were talking earlier about Martin Seligman, right? So he wrote a book called Flourish. And in that book, he has this acronym called PERMA. And so the PERMA model is a way to break down wellness into an acronym. Here are the 5 things you can do to have a life of wellness. And it's not an accident that this whole thing is premised around the idea of happiness. And so wellness and happiness are kind of similar. They're more than just a simile. They're more than just a synonym. And so here are the things that you can do to increase or maintain a life of wellness. So each day, it would be good if you had positive emotion. And so positive emotion is an essential part of well-being. Happy people look back on the past with gladness, they look into the future with hope, and they enjoy and cherish the present. And so this is kind of like one of those thank you, Captain Obvious sort of presentations here with PERMA. If you want to be happy, you should have a positive emotion. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll write this down. But positive emotion is part of what is required for you to be okay, you know? And the next thing is called engagement. When we focus on doing the things we truly enjoy and care about, we can begin to engage completely with the present moment and enter the state of being known as flow. In order to have flow, you got to be doing stuff, right? And so every day you should be engaged in doing stuff. It's not good to totally just sit on the couch and try to reach a flow state by sitting on the couch. You have to actually pick up a book or, play a game or, take a crack at bettering your life in order to engage in stuff. And so when you are actively engaged in doing things, that's a step towards wellness. Relationships. Everyone needs someone. We enhance our well-being and share it with others by building strong relationships with the people around us, family, friends, coworkers, and neighbors. And so part of the basic needs that we have is to be around other people. I think that's part of, for me, I'm in a bit of a mourning, sadness about everybody being isolated from each other, because I know that one of our most basic needs as human beings is to be around other people. And so I love that I get to be around my family, but it's sad that I don't get to go to work where there are other people. And I get, strength from being around other people. So relationships are something that you need in order to be well. Next is meaning. We are at our best when we dedicate time to something greater than ourselves. It might be religious faith, community work, family, politics, a charity, a professional or creative goal. It's just good to be involved in doing things that matter to you. If you are living a life where you are pursuing the deeper meaning behind things that you're interested in, that's a step towards wellness. And it feels good too. Yep. And so the last thing, the A, is for accomplishment. Everyone needs to win sometimes. You need to achieve well-being and happiness. So you got to be able to look back on your life and think about, did I do this well? Did I accomplish something? Did I achieve the things that I wanted to achieve? And, to the extent that you can answer that with a yes, then that's an accomplishment and a step towards wellness. And so these 5 things together, positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment, are what make up the PERMA model. And PERMA is a way to do wellness. Cool? All right, I got a wellness video for us here. Let's go watch that real quick. All right. So do you guys have any questions about positive psychology, flow, perma, and wellness? All right. So what I want to do is take about a 5-minute break. And then after our 5-minute break, I'm going to do a little bit, just for a couple minutes, on dealing with isolation. And then I want to go through the homework for you guys so you know what we're doing for the discussion board. So go take 5 minutes. I will start back up at 3:06. Cool? Take a break. Alrighty, it's been 5 minutes. Let's see what we got going on for the next thing here. So we're in kind of a strange period of time here where everybody's been told, go home. And a whole bunch of people right now are having to deal with not going to work if they have jobs. And like, how do you go forward, when the government and, arguably being safe says we're going to just pause life as we know it right now and have everybody distance themselves from other people to have this virus, pass by. And we're having to deal with not just, cabin fever, staying at home, but there's a lot of stuff that goes with it. And so I don't know about you guys, but I've got a whole bunch of folks in my life who think, this is totally the right thing to be doing. And then I've got a whole bunch of folks in my life who totally think this is a conspiracy. This is stupid. We should all be out. People are going to be fine. Let's just ignore the idea that there's this virus here. People die all the time. And so there's like both sides, and there's a conflicting messaging going on. And, I don't necessarily want to tell you one way over the other is right, because I like data and I see data on both sides. I also happen to have a mom who just got over pneumonia about 3 months ago. And so we're being very cautious about, doing distancing. But that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Is there is a whole lot of information and a whole lot of data, and there is a whole lot of polarizing on both sides of it. And so a crisis happens when reality fails to meet your personal expectations. And that's really where these two polarizing arguments come from, is there is a crisis, and so the crisis is either the disease or the cure. Either the disease is the crisis and we need to isolate ourselves, or the cure is the crisis and we need to get out of isolating and start living again like normal. But right now, neither one of those scenarios is meeting the personal expectations of everybody. We're all going to land somewhere in between those two polarizing messages, right? So part of psychology is this idea of metacognition, and this is thinking about your thinking. And so part of what we need to do is be aware of our bias. One of the things that Full Sail, I don't know if everybody gets this, but they have impressed it upon us that, it's important for us to teach you guys that anything you put into the interwebs is going to live forever out there. And so we all have a bias. As a therapist, I was taught very much to understand the thing called transference and countertransference. And so I have to make sure that I know I have thoughts too, and I can't just project my thoughts out onto everybody, because no one thinks what I think. You have to be aware that you have a bias, and that your bias isn't how everybody else starts their internal thoughts. And so thinking about your thinking is called metacognition. And so the warning here is just, as you think about what you're thinking, know that you have a bias, because every person has an opinion, and that opinion is based in a beginning. So where you start from greatly determines what your thinking leads to. And so I like to say that there's a meaning behind every, thought and behavior. And so our biases are what that's about. And so it's not a bad thing that you have a bias. It's a good thing that you have a bias. It informs you on how you think. And so it's good to be able to flesh out the consequences of what you think. And I do a lot of talk about that in therapy. I do a lot about that with my family. It's important to know that the things that you think have consequences. Not that it's bad, just that there's a reaction. And it's information there. There's data, and that data can be helpful. And so one of the things that I like to do is realize when I'm wrong and then being able to fix it. And so that's that part. I'm going to give you guys some quick and simple, tools and tips and stuff. You guys have already figured out the Discord thing. Discord is great. That's certainly something that you can do to connect with each other. You notice we have the weekly plan each week. And that gets into scheduling your time and planning things that you want to do and sticking to it. Yeah. Go do stuff, but not around people. Go outside, get vitamin D from sunlight. I go out on walks. I generally walk 2 or 3 times a day around my neighborhood. That's kind of how I break up my grading and stuff like that. And so, I'm socially distancing, but I'm not isolated. And by going out and, getting exercise is good. You can use virtual means to talk to your friends and family. You can do FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, and call people. It's kind of fun. My parents are now like Zoom experts over the last month. Simple things you can do. These are really part of those wellness things, right? Eat healthy, exercise, sleep, smile. This one's difficult for me. You're supposed to limit your news sources. This helps you to stay informed without focusing too heavily on bad things. So, like, I consume a lot of media, a lot of news media. I've certainly limited it because it has become very toxic and repetitive. Like, they basically just parrot each other now. And so I'm doing other things with my life, but it's good to limit how much you are, taking in of the news, because there's a whole lot of intentional messaging going on instead of just journalism. Isn't it sad that you have to avoid the news because it's depressing? Like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. There's a whole lot more going on out there that's good stuff than what the news picks. I mean, they do a lot of work to distill it down to things they want you to hear. Here are some resources to make the best out of this time. The Full Sail library is awesome. There are all kinds of good things on there. Go on to Full Sail 1 and check out the Full Sail library. There's some other things here. Audible has free stuff. Go check out Audible. The Overdrive and Hoopla app, those are for downloading audiobooks and ebooks from the library. But there's a whole lot that you guys can get online through the library at Full Sail. It's really good. I found like hours of photography content that I could just download and watch. Things to do with friends. I figure you guys probably already know all this. Video games and esports, virtual watch parties, Jackbox. There's a board game simulator, Netflix watch party. There's a lot of workouts over video chat. I know you guys know most of these already. Here's some of the exercise things that are going on right now virtually. Peloton has a 90-day free thing. Orange Theory has a free 30-minute daily workout. You could totally go ride a bike, go for a walk. Don't be like running up on people. You could do a 100-day challenge of your own design, spending 10 minutes working on creating something every day for 100 days. That would be a really cool big project. There's a 21-day challenge for gratitude. Mindless.1. There's the Sean Acor TED Talk. A lot of stuff on gratitude. It's a good thing to check out. You can be like my kids and do Duolingo. Actually, my wife and my kids are doing Duolingo. Yale has a happiness course that you can take for free. That's pretty cool. It would look similar to what we do here. And then you guys have O'Reilly LinkedIn. I think it's probably all LinkedIn right now. But LinkedIn is great. I did all of my required full sail training right on LinkedIn, and it was great. There's really good stuff on there. There's some stuff you could check out. There's concerts, museums, national parks. I did a museum, like a virtual museum tour with my son for his Cub Scout thing, and that was really great. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and you could go through the whole museum. It was awesome. There's some stuff on the national parks that's really good. There's a lot of national parks stuff on Disney Plus because they have the National Geographic stuff. And so my wife and I watched a whole bunch of national parks stuff on Disney Plus. So these are some of the things that like we're doing. They're doing a whole bunch of like archived sports events. NFL Game Pass is free for a little bit. NBA League Pass for free until the NBA resumes. And I think the most important part for me is I always look for the main theme behind, problems. And so the main theme behind being isolated like this is our sense of control over our lives has been epically messed with, Just the idea that you're being told there's this virus that's like such a big deal that you can't go to work anymore and you got to stay home until like we decide it's okay. Like that's unprecedented. And I'm not saying that it's uncalled for. I'm just saying that there is not a precedent for it. And so because there's not a precedent for it, nobody was expecting that to happen. And so there are a lot of folks who live paycheck to paycheck. And so, you know, now we're relying on, you know, other people to step in and help us out, whether that's, you know, the government helping with not social security, but unemployment, the stimulus stuff that they sent out. You know, a lot of these things, my brother, he got furloughed, and like he's waiting on unemployment, and like the unemployment in Florida is so broken that you can't even get through. And so people rely on these things normally, and there's an expectation that there's a time sensitive, you know, order to get this done in, and that just isn't part of what is what's happening here. And so people are being more than just inconvenienced. People are having their sense of wellness messed with. And it's not because of anything that they did. It's because there's this virus that we're trying to avoid. And until they have decided that we're done avoiding it, we're just supposed to be okay being not okay. And so just knowing that it's messing with your sense of control is a good step to know that it's not something that you did, you know. And it's good to know that the issue is control, because then you have something to at least understand that the problem is. And so the problem is not necessarily the virus. The problem is the lack of control that you feel caused by the treatment for the virus. And the treatment is we're socially isolating ourselves. And so that messes with our sense of control. And so what else can you do to increase your control in your life? I think that's the more important part here, is what things can you control, and go do more of those things. And that control being messed with is going to be dramatically reduced, because there are a whole lot of things we can't control in our lives currently. Jacob, yes, inner and outer locus of control. Yes, control your emotions, develop emotional intelligence. Yes. Very good, very good. Yes, you are showing up as Jacob, like 5 times. You're not just in there once, you're in there like 5 times. Okay, let's bring up week 2. You've already done this, the live lecture. So, have you done your call to play yet? That is due tonight. Are you guys able to see the platform on the screen? Are you able to see the call to play? Yes, good, good. Okay, so go in and do a call to play if you have not, and you'll see that it's what makes you happy. There's not a wrong answer to that. What one task needs to be completed in order for you to relax? I'm not going to grade you wrong on that. So you'll see these are not threatening questions. Who do you turn to regularly for energy and support? And so what you will see is our 2 quests. And so I'm going to show you, you can generally see those in the call to play, but I want to also show you, it's in the discussion board. When you go into the discussion board, which is activity 2.4, you can click the orange here, and it takes you to the infographic for week 2. So if you lose it on the call to play, you can come back to it at the discussion board. Hopefully this is not mind-blowing to you. Hopefully you've already figured this out. If not, there you go. So let's look at the quests for this week. Let's see. This one is new for me. We started this one recently. Quest 1 is get connected. Organize an online meetup with family or friends, play a game, watch a movie, or catch up on the latest gossip. What you're going to be turning in, visual illustrations that capture how you felt before, during, and after connecting with your friends and family. So you're going to organize an online meetup. That could be like Zoom. And you're gonna provide visual illustrations that capture how you felt before, during, and after. So there's not a wrong way to do this. You could send in pictures. You could send in pictures of your Zoom session. You could send in pictures of yourself, of how you felt before, during, and after. I would say there's not a wrong way to do this unless you don't send in some sort of visual thing to demonstrate how you felt before, during, and after your online stuff with your friends. And then Quest 2 is the weekly plan. Just like last week, you can do another weekly plan. Please be sure to send in a week 2 weekly plan. Don't send in the same one that you did for week 1 if you choose to do the weekly plan again. Okay. Quest 3 is brain teasers. Select 3 brain teasers to complete. Feel free to choose any resource of your choosing. So what you're going to turn in, though, is an audio and or visual ad promoting the importance of strengthening your brain. Be creative. Text only will not suffice. So here's what happens. Here is the answer to the question, where do I find brain teasers? When you come back into the directions, you'll see a thing here that you can click on for brain teasers, and it takes you to Sharp Brains. Ta-da! So what we don't want you to do is just send us pictures of the things you did. We're not asking you to send us in pictures of your ones you did. We're not asking you to send us a picture of this thing. You would be surprised how many people send me a picture of this board as their creative deliverable. We don't want that. What we want is an audio or visual ad promoting the importance of strengthening your brain. And so you could send in a slide with an advertisement. You could send in a video. You could send in a picture that you've edited with, something to demonstrate that strengthening the brain is a good idea. So we don't want you to send in pictures necessarily of just the brain teasers that you picked. We want you to come up with an original advertisement about why it's important to strengthen the brain. And so it's important to strengthen the brain because ... Okay, Quest 4. Acts of kindness. Perform 2 meaningful random acts of kindness. And the creative deliverable is a newsletter, newscast, or radio commercial sharing your experience, explaining the benefits, and encouraging others to do the same. So the deliverable here, after you do your meaningful act of kindness, is a newsletter, newscast, or radio commercial. Oh, for the previous thing, we want 3 brain teasers, and you're going to do 1 ad. It does not need to be 3 advertisements, just 1 ad. 1 visual presentation about why it's important to strengthen the brain. For Quest 4, you're going to turn in a newsletter, newscast, or radio commercial sharing your experience, explaining the benefits, and encouraging others to go do nice things. So for Quest 3 and 4, you're going to create something that's going to be like, here's what I did. Here's why it's important to do it. You should go do that too. Okay? It's perfectly appropriate for either Quest 3 or Quest 4 to be, like a slide type presentation or, some sort of visual image-based thing. for the acts of kindness, we would like to see you doing something, you know, a picture of where you go or a picture of you at that place. And then you're going to describe your experience and why was it good? Okay. So those are the quests. Most importantly here, I'm pretty happy with how things are going on what you guys are doing for length of writing, but I will say it here just for having it be recorded. You need a full paragraph for question 2. Which quest did you choose and describe your experience? Because we're asking you to describe your experience, that's why we're asking for a full paragraph here. So a full paragraph for question 2, a full paragraph for question 3, and a full paragraph for question 4. Question 3 is the like, ding, 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 big picture stuff. What did you read? What kind of course material stuck out with you this week? You want to talk about positive psychology. You want to talk about flow. You want to talk about mindfulness. You're going to talk about neuroplasticity after Jennifer talks about it on Wednesday. You want to identify 2 concepts and then develop your answers. What did those concepts mean and how did you apply them? Yeah, a paragraph, this paragraph needs to be at least 5 sentences for each one of them. And then question 4 is explain how these quests impacted your well-being. So how are these questions, how are these quests impacting you? You could totally tie in the PERMA model in question 4. So a good initial post is going to be 3 paragraphs with 2 concepts underlined, and then 2 quest deliverable files. We have our Quest 2 weekly plan here for you in case you need a blank copy. Can Quest 1 be done with the class in Discord, or do we have to have other people? It's new to me, so let me go check. So you could totally go do something on Discord, but what you're going to do, because the deliverable is images, you're going to be turning in those images as your deliverable. So I'm not saying, you know, no, I'm saying the deliverable is the pictures. And so if you believe you can do these pictures by what you do on Discord, that should be fine. Response posts. You need at least 2 response posts, and they need to be at least 5 sentences long. Yep, visual illustrations can be anything from self-made to pictures and screenshots, yes. 2 response posts, at least 5 sentences long. Let's just say you miss the Thursday deadline for the initial post. What should you do then? Make 3 posts, yes, do it. Make 3 posts. If you make your initial post on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you can do 3 responses instead of 2, and you will get those 10 points back that you would have missed if you had not done all 3. So there's like a 10-point penalty for missing the deadline on the initial post, but you can get those back if you do 3 responses. Okay, I believe we are ending up here at the end of all things for my lecture for today. Questions, comments, concerns? Bonus material is bonus. You can totally do it. If you don't, we're not mad at you. You can click here, here, or here. The podcasts are good. Those are fun. But this is not required. But if you don't do the reading, we're going to totally know it. So let's see. If you have any questions, you can write them in the chat box. Abdul says that Deepak Chopra wrote about neuroplasticity in the book Superbrain. Cool. Might have to check that out. Oh, the portfolio reflection at the end. Is that optional or mandatory? So, good question. Later on in the class, at the very end, there is a portfolio competency review assignment. It is not a graded assignment. It's kind of like a look back at your month and what did you learn? Because one day in the future, you'll be taking a portfolio class and you'll want to know, what the heck did I learn in that psychology of play class? Here is basically where you write yourself a Cliff Notes version of what you think was important when you are done with this class. So that when you do your portfolio class and you're trying to think back to your experiences, you'll have something from yourself to remind you of what we did here. And so, yes, it's mostly for reference. And it is not something that we grade as like a percentage. It does not impact your grade if you do it or not. So anyway, good question. All right, this brings us to the close of our roller coaster for the day. If you are ready to get off of the roller coaster, you are totally free to go. The roller coaster has come to a complete stop. If you guys are ready to go, you can go. If you want to hang out and ask me any questions, you are free to do so. On Wednesday, Jennifer is going to come talk to us, and I will be in the background. Thank y'all for coming. I'm going to turn the recording off, and I will hang around for a couple of minutes in case you guys want to ask any questions.